With so many cookies to choose from, it's kind of easy to get confused as to what cookies are the best, especially when they're all the same rarity. The other day we took a look at the best ancient cookies, but today we're going to be taking a look at the 5 best legendaries. There's only 5 legendaries, so that just means we're ranking them from the weakest to the strongest. So lo and behold, the top 5 legendary cookies in order. So starting off with number 1. Now I want to say that just because this is the worst legendary cookie doesn't mean it's bad. It's just the worst legendary, which is better than most epics. And that is Sea Fairy. The reason why Sea Fairy is so bad is because her ability is really kind of dependent on being a one-shot ability. With her massive cooldown of about 16 seconds, it takes quite a while from one special use to the next. So Dev Sisters tried to accommodate for this by putting on her rally effect, her Crystal Jam, that powers up her water attack even more and also powers up allies' water type damage. And now while this is useful, it's very dependent and limited. For example, you won't see Sea Fairy on most teams that aren't one-shot. I don't think I've ever seen Sea Fairy on a non-one-shot team because she just doesn't have that flexibility. Now, if you do end up wanting to make Sea Fairy, generally there's only one way, as you saw, to build her, and that is with the raspberries. Now, the reason why is because she's a one-shot. You know, if you get her to a point where you try to use cooldown on her, it'll kind of reduce the effectiveness of her ability because it really is dependent on that big hit. Now, what a lot of teams do with her is they'll have her with the Sugar Swan Shining Feather on a one-shot team. So whenever she, Frost Queen, or someone else dies, they instantly come back and use that special. So if you're building her, you want to go all raspberry and focus on as much damage resist and attack as possible. For the Biscuit, you want as much damage resist, bypass, and attack as possible. Now, coming in at the second worst legendary, or the 4th best, depending on how optimistic you are, and that is Black Pearl. Now, the jump from Sea Fairy to Black Pearl is kind of big, because while Sea Fairy can only be used on one-shot teams, Black Pearl, on the other hand, has a lot more flexibility. Now, what Black Pearl's ability does is it basically takes all the enemies, puts a whirlpool on them, and sends it around them to suck them into the middle and deal multiple hits of damage. Now that's a great ability for, especially for PvE, but even in PvP you can use it to corral everyone together to give them one big hit, which is why Black Pearl is also a part of one-shot teams. But because of Black Pearl's Crystal Jam, she also gains the rally effect of allied damage resist bypass with skill 22.6%. So Black Pearl was involved in quite a bit of meta teams for a while when this first came out, and even nowadays, now that she's slipped out of the arena meta, she's still extremely useful in things like the current special battles. There is a bit more flexibility you have with Black Pearl, and as you can see here, I have her Magic Candy quite a bit higher than Sea Fairy's for that exact reason. Now, when it comes to building Black Pearl, there's traditionally 2 ways to do it, but I only have one. I'll go over both. So the first way to do it is actually by going full sea salt chocolate chip, just chocolate toppings, and you want to focus on cooldown and damage resist as much as possible. If this doesn't work for you with the damage resist that it provides, you want to go with almonds, solid almonds, and have as much damage resist on them as possible with some cooldown. When it comes to the Biscuit, you really just want to have cooldown and damage resist. This one's the damage resist bypass is nice because her skill does do damage, but cooldown and damage resist is a big too. And now on to number 3. We've got Moonlight, Frost Queen, and Stormbringer left. This is where it gets a bit complicated, and I might get some hate for this, but for number 3, we're going Moonlight Cookie. Now, Moonlight Cookie's Crystal Jam was just released, and it is actually kind of useful. Now, the reason why I say kind of, and the sole reason I include her under Frost Queen, is because Moonlight Cookie's Crystal Jam really kicks in when it gets into the later stages. I'm talking plus 15 and beyond. And if you don't have her highly ascended, then it starts from plus 20 and beyond. And the reason why is because if we take a look at her Crystal Jam, we can see that at plus 10, she activates a new ability and gains increased damage resist, bypass, and damage. And then at plus 20, she gains again more damage resist, bypass, and also more damage dealt. Now, those damage resist bypasses are huge, and especially this one that it can increase it 1.7% per each 1% of cooldown decrease with Biscuits capped at 30%. So that not only gives her an extra 30% damage resist bypass, it goes on top of the other one that gives another 35% damage resist bypass, and overall, her skill just deals a lot of bypass damage. But If you're not at plus 10, plus 15, plus 20, you don't get these abilities. Moonlight is pretty underwhelming with her Crystal Jam below plus 10. Whereas Frost Queen, the second you get Frost Queen's Crystal Jam, she evolves as a cookie. Once you get to plus 20, you want to try to get 30% cooldown here, because the cooldown serves as damages bypass. Until you get to plus 20, you want to focus entirely on damages bypass and damages cooldown. Now for number 2, and I'm sure you guys can see this coming, Frost Queen, the only one who I've gotten near a plus 30 Crystal Jam. Now Frost Queen, even though it's been months and months since she got her Crystal Jam, she is in almost every top meta team. She is just so useful. Her hits are very heavy. The reason why Frost Queen is so deadly is because if we look at her Crystal Jam, it really just explodes how much damage she can deal. For example, her Crystal Jam, team's ice type damage nearly plus 40%. That's more than Sea Fury's water type boost. Freeze, 35% chance when all allies deal ice type damage to a frost target. And then this is the big part, damage after freeze, 115% of Queen's attack. She just gets so many debuffs with her ability, and then the plus 10, 20, and even here plus 30, ignore the 40% of damage resist. Basically just damage resist bypass, but fancier. Now the reason why I go into this in detail is because Frost Queen can deal damage from the beginning to the end. From when she uses her skill, it's a lot of damage. After she's done using her skill, it's still a lot of damage. And now number 1, and my personal second favorite behind Moonlight Cookie, even though I ranked Moonlight Cookie 3rd, and that is Stormbringer, the only legendary without a Crystal Jam, and boy oh boy does she deserve the number 1 spot. Stormbringer's ability is extremely long. Now Stormbringer really scales off of crit, deals electricity type damage, and just does not die. So when you give her crit percentage, that actually serves as damage resist, and on top of that, when she gets enough crit, she gains even more damage resist through an in-game ability, supercharged. Now the thing is with Stormbringer, she's a charge cookie, so she's a tank, but she also deals massive amounts of damage, but she also deals debuffs. The only thing she's missing is healing. Literally the only thing she's missing is healing. But aside from that, there is nothing that Stormbringer is missing. Now let's start off with toppings. With the toppings, I actually have all raspberry, but there is 2 separate builds. This is like the secondary build. I'll go over the primary one in a second. This is just for, I'm pretty sure I use this more for PvE. For PvP and most reasons, you're going to want to go with this build. Now, the apple jelly crit build. As I mentioned, Stormbringer scales off of getting that crit up because it boosts her damage resist. So you really don't need direct damage resist too much. What I would do with the apple jelly crit focus is focus on crit and cooldown and a little bit of damage resist, just because it's better to be a little bit safe than sorry. Once she hits that max, it's a little bit nice to have that slight boost. So that's everything for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I really wanted to bring you guys this video because I know it can be quite difficult to ascertain who's the best legendary. Now if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check this one out about the top 7 epic cookies in the game, and if you like that, you also might like this one about the top ancients. Until then, guys, see you there.